Alright, so hey guys, at this station we had to investigate compressed air and uncompressed air and how that relates to high and low pressure. So to help us out here, I asked Mr. Miller to join us. Everybody say hi to Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, say hi to everybody. How you doing? Alright, so Mr. Miller here is filled with air. And if Mr. Miller had higher air, higher pressure air inside of him, he would expand. Or if there was higher pressure air surrounding Mr. Miller, he would be crushed. But right now, Mr. Miller is stable. The pressure inside Mr. Miller is the same as the pressure outside Mr. Miller. That's why he's not growing or shrinking. Now, I can compress the air in Mr. Miller by doing this, right? And now we're compressing the air and Mr. Miller is getting all squeezed out. Or I can uncompress the air in Mr. Miller there just by letting go. Well, that's the idea here, okay? Compressed, uncompressed. Forced, compressed, high pressure, uncompressed, low pressure. Let's take a look at this and see what I mean. Let's put Mr. Miller here on this little stage here so everybody can see him. Okay, right there. There's Mr. Miller. We'll leave him right there. Perfect. And I'm going to take this jar. Mr. Miller, say goodbye. Wait, what are you doing? No, wait, don't do that. Yeah, I'm going to do this. Now, wait, check this out. All we're doing is we're just covering Mr. Miller here with this little jar. Okay? Now, Mr. Miller's hanging out in here. Maybe he's not too happy about it, but he's hanging out in here. And I didn't change anything about the air pressure. All I did was just cover him up. I didn't put any more air to compress it. I didn't take any air out to decompress it. But here's the deal. I got this little guy here, this little compressor here, and this is kind of a unique one. It's not like it doesn't shoot air out. It actually sucks air in. Okay, so there we go. It doesn't blow air out. It sucks air in. And so what's cool about that is this. Is I can take this guy here and I can connect it to this guy right here. And I can turn this back on, and I could take the air out of here. Now the question is as I take the air out of here, is the air in here going to become more compressed or less compressed? Now let's think about that for a second. If I'm taking air out, and we need to figure out if it's becoming more compressed or less compressed, we can use the balloon to help us out here. If it's becoming more compressed, the balloon should get squeezed. If it's becoming less compressed, the balloon may expand. So let's think about which one it's going to be for a second. Kind of get it in your mind there. I'm going to take the air out. Is Mr. Miller going to expand or is he going to get squeezed if I take the air out? Got enough thinking. Let's figure it out. I turn this on and Mr. Miller starts to grow. Mr. Miller starts to expand here. Now, why is Mr. Miller growing? Why is Mr. Miller getting bigger here? He's getting bigger because I'm taking the air from underneath this jar out of here. And the air is becoming less compressed. And because the air inside the jar is becoming less compressed, it's not pushing down on Mr. Miller anymore. So actually what's happening is the air inside Mr. Miller is pushing out. So inside Mr. Miller, it's pushing out high pressure, but surrounding Mr. Miller, there's lower pressure. And so what's happening is the air in here is less compressed and there's room for Mr. Miller to grow. Now, if I put air back in here, there's no more room for Mr. Miller to grow, and he's going to shrink back down because the force of air is going to be pushing down on him. So all I need to do is just kind of shut this valve, unplug it, and then watch this. I'm going to let some air back in. Let me know when you're ready. Here we go. I'm going to let some air back in. And then Mr. Miller is going to get crushed only by the weight of air. Here we go. See it? Let go again. And the only thing crushing Mr. Miller here is the air that's rushing back into the jar. Now let's do this again. Just to highlight it one more time. Just to highlight it one more time. I'm going to turn this on. Mr. Miller's going to grow. Now why is Mr. Miller growing? Because the air in this jar, underneath this jar, is becoming uncompressed. And the higher pressure in the balloon is forcing the balloon to grow. Now, I know this kind of seems cruel and unusual, but I'm wondering if we can get Mr. Miller to blow up. Now, let's see if that happens. Eventually, we're going to reach a point where the balloon can't take the force of air pushing out anymore, and it will eventually explode. Sorry, Mr. Miller. But I think Mr. Miller helped us out with a clear example that as we were taking the air out, it was becoming uncompressed, and the balloon was able to grow. And then when I put the air back in, by letting go of this, and the air went back in. Now, I want to prove to you that air is going in here. So I need a little piece of paper. Perfect. I got a piece of paper right here. Just going to grab a little piece of paper right here. Perfect. Check this out. Air is coming in, and I put this piece of paper right here, and it's sticking to the valve because the air is rushing into the jar here. And I move this out. If the air was rushing out, this would be blowing away like a flag. So air is rushing in there, and we can prove it just by this. So now the air, as it rushes in, is becoming more compressed under the jar. And if Mr. Miller were still alive underneath this jar, he would be getting compressed and crushed as well. And that's it. That's how air pressure works underneath the bell jar.